So as I get more comfortable in the bag, I start snapping shots. And that's when I start stealing. Pop, 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 pop. I keep them busy, and that's when I start mixing. But see, I'm moving the head, moving the guard, feint. See, I'm always mixing my pace, just a little different stuff. Said, a little different pace of striking. Always mixing it up a little bit. Nice and easy, just mixing it up, different paces. So there I was, just tap, rip, tap, tap, rip, rip. And again, that's what the broken rhythm's all about. Learning how to explode, twitch, and get that little burst of energy.
Hey everyone, if you're into the world of mixed martial arts, you know the name Duke Roufus. He wasn't just a coach, he was a builder of champions, a kickboxing legend who turned raw talent into unbreakable fighters. On October 10th, 2025, the MMA community lost one of its true giants when Roufus passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 55. The news came as a shock, hitting like a sucker punch in the first round. His longtime friend and business partner Scott Joff broke the silence on social media, sharing the pain of a man who had given so much to the sport. Duke was more than a celebrated trainer and champion. Kickboxer, he was a mentor, innovator, father and friend whose influence transformed the landscape of mixed martial arts. Joff wrote, as tributes pour in from fighters, fans, and fellow coaches. Let's take a moment to remember Duke Roufus, the man who turned Milwaukee into a breeding ground for UFC stars and left a blueprint for success that's still being followed today. Duke Roufus was born on February 21, 1970, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a city with blue-collar roots and a nonsense vibe that mirrored the fighter he would become. Growing up in a working-class family, Duke found his way to martial arts early, drawn to the discipline and thrill of combat sports. Kickboxing became his first love. He started training as a teen, honing his skills in dojos across the Midwest. By his early 20s, he was competing at a high level, racking up wins in the ring with a style that was all power and precision. Duke wasn't the biggest guy, but he fought smart, explosive kicks, ironclad defense, and a heart that refused to quit. He captured multiple world titles in kickboxing, including the ISKA and K1 belts, and even dabbled in Muay Thai, earning respect from Thai fighters who called him the American Destroyer. His pro record stood at 18-3, with knockouts that left opponents seeing stars, but Duke's real magic happened outside the ropes. In 1998, he founded Roufusport MMA Academy in Milwaukee, a gritty gym that became a mecca for fighters chasing dreams. In the emerging world of mixed martial arts, back then, MMA was still the Wild West. UFC was raw, rules were loose, and coaches had to be jacks of all trades. Duke was that and more. He didn't just teach strikes, he built complete warriors, emphasizing technique, strategy, and mental toughness. Fight smart, not hard, he'd tell his students, drilling them on everything from Brazilian jiu-jitsu takedowns to Muay Thai clinches. Roufusport wasn't fancy, no flashy lights or celebrity endorsements. It was a concrete floor haven where sweat and grit built legacies. Under Duke's guidance, the gym produced a roster of stars who dominated cages worldwide. No one embodied Duke's impact more than the Pettis brothers, Anthony and Sergio. Anthony, the former UFC lightweight champion, credits Duke with saving his life after tragedy struck. In 2003, Anthony's father, Antonio Pettis Sr., was killed in a car accident. Duke stepped in as a father figure, taking the 15-year-old under his wing and turning his pain into purpose. When my dad was killed, you took me in and became my father, Anthony wrote on Instagram after Duke's death. Together, we did the impossible and made it to the top. I will always make you proud. You've taught me so much. I will make sure your legacy continues on. Anthony's run under Duke was legendary. The Showtime kick knockout of Benson Henderson in 2013, a UFC title reign, and wars with Rafael dos Anjos and Nate Diaz. Sergio, the younger brother and current UFC bantamweight contender, credits Duke for his technical wizardry, including spinning back fists that have become his signature. Duke's coaching tree extended far beyond the Pettis family. He molded Tyron Woodley into a welterweight destroyer, guiding him to a UFC title shot and multiple defenses with knockout power that echoed Duke's own kickboxing roots. Ben Askren, the wrestling phenom turned MMA star, sharpened his striking. At Roufusport, crediting Duke for the footwork that made him funky. Other alumni include Bilal Muhammad, the current UFC welterweight champ, and rising stars like Brandon Royval. Duke's method was simple but effective, cross-training that fused kickboxing's stand-up flair with grappling's ground game. About hype, he was about results. Fighters trained in a family-like atmosphere, with Duke as the steady hand pushing them hard but always with encouragement. Duke saw potential where others saw problems. Woodley once said, "He built us up, one round at a time." Duke's own fighting days weren't ancient history. He stayed active in the gym, sparring lightly and teaching seminars worldwide. His kickboxing legacy lived on through his students, many of whom carried his techniques into MMA glory. Grew from a small dojo to a full-fledged academy, offering classes for kids and pros alike. Duke invested in the community, hosting free clinics and supporting local youth programs. Off the mats, he was a family man, married to his wife Michelle since the 1990s, with 2 kids who grew up around the gym. He loved classic cars, grilling steaks on weekends, and cracking jokes that lightened the toughest sessions. Duke was the dad everyone needed, a former student shared, tough as nails, but he'd hug you after you got knocked down. The news of Duke's passing spread like wildfire through the MMA world. Joff, his partner in Roufusport, posted a raw tribute. On Facebook, today the Roufusport family and martial arts world was stunned by the heartbreaking news that Duke Roufus passed away peacefully in his sleep. Anthony Pettis' words cut deepest, a raw thank you from a son in every way that mattered. Fighters from across the UFC roster chimed in. Conor McGregor called him a pioneer of the striking game, while John Jones praised his quiet wisdom. Promoters like Dana White sent condolences, noting Roufusport's role in building UFC champions. Social media lit up with hashtag #DukeForever, fans sharing clips of Pettis' kick or Woodley's knockouts, all tagged with gratitude for the coach behind them. Duke's death at 55 feels unfair. He was in his prime as a mentor. With Roufusport churning out contenders and his influence spreading to new gyms worldwide, no official cause beyond peaceful in his sleep has been shared, but the MMA community is already planning tributes. A memorial service is set for October 20th in Milwaukee, open to fighters, fans, and friends, with stories, fights on screens, and a toast to the man who made it all possible. Roufusport will host ongoing clinics in his name and look for dedications at upcoming UFC events. Maybe a Pettis fight with Duke on the shorts. Duke Roufus wasn't flashy. He was foundational. He turned kickboxing kicks into MMA knockouts, raw talent into world champs, and a Milwaukee gym into a launchpad for legends. His fighters didn't just win belts, they carried his lessons of grit and grace. As Anthony said, "I'll make sure your legacy continues." Today, that means lacing up, hitting the pads, and remembering the coach who taught us to fight smart, love hard, and never quit. Rest easy. Duke, the Roufusport ring will never be the same, but it's stronger because of you.